Hey, welcome to Keight Krafts. I'm Kate. Today I would like to share with you a simple, cozy winter card. Let's get started. So to kick things off, I am going to take some Bristol Smooth Vellum, and we are going to cut this down a little bit bigger than what I'm going to need. And then next we are going to take the Lawn Fawn Snowflake Stenciled background stencil, Snowflake background stencil, and we are going to go in with some Spun Sugar Distress Oxide, and I'm going to go a bit of a heavy hand with this one because I want to make sure that those colors really do pop, even though they are kind of pastel. Now, the reason why I have chose the colors that I have chosen today in the Distress Oxide was because I had seen Jordy's cards use similar colors to this, and I really like how they look together, and they're two colors that I don't use too often, I don't think, I mean, I use these colors, but I don't know that I use them too much together. I would have to go back and check my library because I've done so many cards over the last almost 2 years. That's right, almost 2 years. So I've got some Tumbled Glass here in the Distressed Oxide, and I'm just going in with that second part of the Snowflake Stencil by Lawn Fawn, and I want to make sure that I get all of the little bits and bobs, and I've got, again, a heavy hand with this one, so I get that nice, rich, thick color on the stencil bits here. So yeah, so once I'm done with that, we're going to do a bit of the reveal so you can see how lovely that looks together. Next, I have some Fine-Tech Iridescent watercolors in Amethyst, and I'm going to load that up with some water and swirl this around, and then I'll add a little bit of that water to my pan there and swirl that around, because waste not, want lot. Add a little bit more water, that way I can get a nice little drop going, and then I'll just tap that against my tin here and make sure I have lots of splatter. Now, I don't know if I like the sound of the tin, so here I'm just going to use my finger. That way I can see better what I'm doing. It doesn't matter what you tap your brush off of, whatever you feel comfortable with, I guess. But, I don't know, sometimes I like tapping off of things or tapping off my finger. Now this right here, this shiny, rainbowy goodness, I received in the mail a while back from Inky and Scrappy, so thank you, Jamie. I want to say that she got it from Crescent Creations, I think. I don't know, maybe she'll leave a comment down below and let me know where this stuff came from, because this stuff is holographic goodness. So I've cut that down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I used an outside in-stitch scallop rectangle die because I wanted to save an inside piece of that, because we're not going to see the underneath bit, and I wanted to make sure that I saved some of that for another card because I don't have very many pieces of it, or slices of it, I should say. So now I'm just kind of selectively skimming off little bits and edges of my inked black background here, and I want to make sure that I have 5 1/4 by 4 inches, so we get that lovely little border around it. Now I lined everything up and I felt something was missing, so I thought I would come in around the edges with a little bit of this shaded lilac, just to give the edges a little more je ne sais quoi, I guess you could say. I wasn't sure what I was doing, and I guess I didn't really like this at first, but once I had a good look at it after the ink dried back a little bit, because the Distress Oxide does get a little bit chalky, and I think once it dried off, I rather liked it afterwards. So here we've got a little bit of a snow globe scene, and I'm using the Snow Globe Scene by Lawn Fawn, and I've chose the little gingerbread house with the cute little gingerbread. And I've got my colors here. I've got some E25, E23, and E21 that I'm going to use for the base of the snow globe, for the little gingerbread house and the little gingerbread man. And I end up bringing back that E25 quite a bit because I end up not really caring for the E21 that I use here. I don't know what it was, if it was just too bright for what I was going for, and the colors just didn't, I just wasn't pleased with them. So I ended up darkening everything up with that E25, and then I blend it all back out with that E23, as you'll see in a minute. And I really wanted to try very hard to keep this to a two-color blend because these are such small images to color, and I was just really happy to get back into the swing of things, to find a little bit of my mojo, because as you guys may or may not know, I had been busy, very, very busy, with all my markets, especially with all the seasoned markets for Christmas and stuff like that. It was a whirlwind. This season has been absolutely bonkers. I think last year I did maybe about 6 or 7 markets. I think I did 7 markets last year. And then this year I participated in 16. Who knows? Maybe next year I will lose my absolutely entire mind and do 20 markets next year. I don't know. The jury's out still. So I wanted to add a little bit of sparkle to my snow here. So I've grabbed my Wink Stella and I'm just going around a little bit just to give it a little bit of sparkle. Now you could do a little bit of blending on the background for the sky, but since this is a snow globe, I didn't really want to get too involved, but I did want to bring in that N0 to go over the little plate there. So here I'm just kind of lining everything up, and I think, you know what, I'm going to bring in some of this foam tape. Now, a while back, a friend of mine and I used to frequent this store, and it was called Bins. And what it was this really filthy little store that you would go in, and they were like these troughs of Amazon returns. So I guess you could buy a skid of Amazon returns and resell whatever it is, and I guess it is a hit or miss because they are Amazon returns and you really don't know what you're getting, but we would sometimes go just for kicks and we would find the neatest stuff. And I actually found a little, I don't know, 5x7 plastic zip bag of foam squares. And it was one of those days, I think, where like you could fill a plastic bag for $5. And I mean, we would go in and our bags would be bursting full of, in other words, crap. Like stuff people buy that they don't want. And I mean, we've found some pretty questionable things going there, but we've also found some pretty cool things. Like I did find a lot of these little double-sided foam squares that was really cool. I found some sticker paper of all things, like vinyl printable sticker paper. So I ended up using a bunch of that for stickers from my market. And yeah, it was it was a lot of fun, but since then it's kind of caught fire and it hasn't been operable again, and I don't know that it ever will. And the other ones don't quite compare to its filthiness because it was, you'd leave there and if you didn't have some kind of gloves on, your fingers would be pretty gray because it was that dirty. But boy, the stuff you could find, let me tell you. Anyway, so I've taken the little stars die from the Fantastic Friends add-on, and I'm just going to add these in here as sequins, just to give my card a little bit of pop, and just, you know, to add a little bit of interest. I mean, you could have gone all willy-nilly with this and put them all over, but I ended up just using 6 and plopping them down. And I think this kind of just ties in a little bit with that border that you get when you add this on top of that holographic paper, which I don't think I have ever seen such a mirror on a holographic paper before, quite like this one. So Jamie, really, if you know where this came from, or if it's still available, that would be really cool to know because I might have to hit you up for some more of this when I run out. If you have any left, I will pay for postage because this stuff is pretty. And I mean, I have some of this stuff from Recollections, but it does not shine quite like this. So all I'm doing here is I'm taking off just the squares on the outer edges, and yes, I know I used a lot of foam squares for this, but you know, it was part of a $5 bag, and I don't think I will use up enough of these in the next little while to make a big of a difference. So I'm just going around the edges here to give myself a little bit of wiggle room because this is going to be going on top of that little frame. As you can see, I used the outside in-stitch scallop die there, and that way I can save the inside to make something else with it because this cardstock is just fun. So I'm going to line that up on my grid mat here. I'm going to stand above my project to make sure that I get my corners nice and even, and then I'll flip that over and give that a pat. And then off camera, I've gone ahead and folded and cut and scored my 4¼ by 5½ A2 sized card base. And then I'm going to peel off all the rest of those little tiny foam square release tape papers. And yeah, then we're going to add a little bit of glue. Oh, no, still got a couple more. Give me a second here, sorry. I know this is the last thing you want to see is me peeling off release tape from foam, the ever amount of foam squares. So here we go with a little bit of my Barely Arts glue around the edges just to make sure that I get a nice seal around and that paper is nice and stuck. We'll throw a little bit of glue on those extremely sticky squares, and then we will take our card base and we will make sure that everything is lined up perfectly, just like so. We'll give that a mash down, and my card is complete. Look at that shine. I absolutely love it. So there's the shine there. It is so disco-y. And here you can see my finished card. So if you've enjoyed today's content, you know what to do. And as always, thanks for hanging out with me today. Take care.